It's Dave. Hey, everybody, it's Dave here. Darren over there. We're your two old bloggers. Been doing this, commenting publicly on your Minnesota Vikings for over count them, 2 decades each. That's over 4 decades worth of knowledge and observations here at your fingertips. I want to welcome everybody to the show already. I see that my worthless opinion, Dr. Proto, Davey Chains are already here, and we're ready to get this started shortly. Today, we have 3 themes as usual. The first one we're going to be talking about is the running game fixed? It's a great question. I want to think yes. I hope so, yes, because it all helps. Second theme is going to be the Davenport effect. Wasn't it nice to have a healthy Marcus Davenport on the field last week? He's limited again all this week and questionable, but hopefully that is just paperwork, and he'll be out there this week as well because he will be needed. And thirdly, we're going to preview the game where the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs come to U.S. Bank Stadium to take on your Minnesota Vikings. Next on Two Old Bloggers. Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikings Land with Darren and Dave, your two old bloggers. Hey, everybody, it's Dave here again, and Darren over there. How are things in the Great White North there, buddy?
Pretty good, Dave. This weekend is Canadian Thanksgiving, so
happy Thanksgiving.
Long weekend for us folks in Canada, and daughter's down from college for the weekend. And,
woohoo!
So yeah, family gathering, just the 3 of us and the dog.
Outstanding. Well, that works. I know it's a long weekend here, but I forget for what. There's something Monday that Katie has the day off. So... And she took Friday off.
Sure, it's on my calendar somewhere.
It probably is, like your Thanksgiving. I usually watch for those things. But I've been a little bit busy and had fun last night and wasn't paying attention. So it is good to get this going. David Chains asks, is Bradbury starting? We'll get to that in probably theme 3 there, Davey, but we'll find out. But first, we need to go to
report anymore.
We need to go to theme 1. Running back game fixed? Or the running game fixed? Is it?
Very good question, Dave. One that Viking fans have been wondering about. We know early on there was a lot of concerns after the first 2 games when the Vikings had, after those 2 games, had 26 carries for 68 yards, 2.6 yards per carry. And so that led to a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth amongst Viking fans about the state of the running game. A lot of questions at that point about Alexander Mattison. Was he the number 1 guy? Oh, he's not explosive enough, not a home run hitter. Why do we let go of Dalvin Cook? And then a lot of questions about Kevin O'Connell because the running game was not very good in 2022, even though overall our counting stats were pretty solid. But a lot of the underlying kind of metrics, analytics type stuff suggested our running game was very inefficient. A lot of negative runs. Not Dalvin Cook's stats weren't as good as they, again, on the analytics side of things, he didn't perform as well as the counting stats might have might have looked and, people were saying, hey, well, Kevin O'Connell, he's supposed to be an offensive guru, come from the Sean McVay coaching tree. They always have a good running game. He said he was going to work to get this fixed, and hey, it's not fixed yet. So what up, folks? And a lot of concerns. And of course you go 0-2 and then 0-3. And then there's even more questions about the running game. And so, but now the last 2 games, the Vikings running attack has actually been really, really good. You got against the Chargers, 24 carries, 130 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, which is super duper good. Alexander Mattison was over 90 yards in that game. And they were even a little bit better against the Carolina Panthers last week. Now,
and total yardage over 100.
Yeah. 23 carries for the Vikes, 135 yards, almost 6 yards per carry on that one. Again, Mattison was over 90 yards rushing on that one. And so that is a very effective running game, Dave. So the question is, have the Vikings turned things around? And thanks, Steven, you're back. Haven't seen him in a while. It has been a long time, but yeah. And I think with this question, Dave, and you can jump in here at any time like you usually do, especially on that O-line stuff that you like to get into. But I think the question might be to look at it is, was there anything wrong with the Vikings game to begin with? Looking at their 4 games. The first game they played against Tampa Bay, you look at, again, that was not a very good running game performance. I think we had like 16, 17 carries for 40 some yards, something like that. But if you look at the Buccaneers defense overall, they've only given up in 3 of their 4 games. They haven't given up more than 70 yards rushing in a game. They got gashed by the Eagles, but the Eagles seem to do that against everybody. And then they're only averaging giving up 17 points per game so far after 4 games. So the Bucs seem to have a pretty good defense and a pretty good run defense. And sometimes when you face a really good run defense, they shut you down, and that's what the Bucs did. The Philly game, of course, 9 carries, 20 some yards or whatever. But when you look at, I looked at, and this was just something I came up with, Dave, was like successful runs versus unsuccessful runs by the Vikings in the 4 games. And I consider a successful run to be if you get 4 yards or more on a carry, because if you get 3 carries for 4 yards each, you get a first down.
That makes sense.
But also if those carries, even if they're under 4 yards a carry, if they lead to a first down, or you get a touchdown, I also consider that a successful run. Because sometimes if it's 3rd and 1, you get 2 yards, well, you got the first down.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. Same thing with getting a touchdown. Well, looking at, again, the Tampa Bay game, amount of successful runs the Vikings had, we only had 35% successful runs. So that's not very good. But against the Eagles, it was only 9 carries, but 5 of our runs were successful out of those 9, surprisingly, 55%. The problem with the Eagles game was that the way the game went, we had some bad turnovers. We got behind multiple scores early, and then particularly in the 3rd quarter, and the Vikings, to get back in the game, had to abandon the run early, and it was pass. And so I think the problem with the Eagles game was more, it wasn't so much execution and poor execution, but lack of opportunity that led to that stat line looking as bad as it did. And then the last 2 games, of course, again, we've been running very well. Now, like I said before, I thought the problem with the running game early on was the offensive line not open up enough holes. Well, the last 2 games, there have been mucho holes for Alexander Mattison to run through. In the Chargers game, Ty Chandler running through the few carries he got against the Chargers. And then last week against the Panthers, same thing. Alexander Mattison and Cam Akers were getting to the line of scrimmage and getting past the line of scrimmage, I thought quite a few yards before they actually got contact, which is what you want. And so I think the offensive line has done a much better job the past 2 games in run blocking for our offense, for our running backs. And lo and behold, Dave, the running game is prospering because of that.
That's right. And do you know the difference? Something switched in the last couple games when it comes to the O-line. And I'm not talking about Schlottman for Bradbury.
Well, I think when you look at I think in the interior on what I've noticed, these are just Pro Football Focus grades. Our run blocking grades on the interior for run blocking have been pretty good for Schlottman, Ezra Cleveland, and even Ed Ingram against the Chargers. His run blocking grades were like off the charts good. Like he was 91 point something. That's been, I think, a big difference there in the effectiveness. And a lot of our runs have been successful runs have been middle runs.
What changed was in the first couple games, the scheme is zone blocking, outside zone and mid zone. These last couple games, they keep adding in more and more gap power style blocking. It's different. It presents different blocking rules for the linemen. They're more powering off the ball and hitting their guy versus moving laterally to try to create cutback lanes when you have a zone style system.
Yeah.
I think the more gap power style of how they have changed the blocking assignments when it comes to run has opened up those holes, and it's given the advantage. Always running the ball is the advantage to the offensive lineman because they then are the aggressor in the situation. They're not reacting. Pass blocking is a reaction type block. Run blocking, they can be the aggressor. And when you narrow it from, I don't have to move sideways, I can now move forward from the snap to wherever it is. You may even be taking an angle or whatever you're doing, but you're moving forward. You become more powerful. And when those guys make contact, they're opening up holes we did not see prior. And so I think the change is good for the team. It's obviously good for the O-line. It's good for the running backs that we do actually have, because we don't. If you have a shifty back that can spot open backside holes and make that cut, sure, fine. Zone running works great. But if you have more of the Alexander Mattison type, where he's called to go to the number 2 hole or A gap, he's looking to go there. And it's going to take a bit if he spots something over here that busts open for him to cut and go the other way. He wants to go forward just like those linemen do. And if the linemen are going forward, he's going forward, you're getting push. Those holes tend to open up and leave him space to plow through them and then take on a linebacker or whatever. And I think that's the difference, and I think it is the correct move, and I will see more and more of it.
And Davey Chain's talking about the additional TE, which brings up a good point. I think Josh Oliver, particularly the last couple of games, has really shown why the Vikings signed him, because he can run block. Actually, hey, Mary. So I think he's showing his worth in the past couple of games. Actually, the guy can also pass block. I saw him in Carolina taking on some defensive ends and taking them to a stalemate, which you don't see very often from a tight end on a defensive end matchup very often. So Josh Oliver is making a difference. I think Stephen was talking about Cam Akers, a nice compliment to Alexander Mattison. That Alexander Mattison, and I agree, like Cam Akers looked pretty good in that game. He got 7 snaps, but he had one screen pass which went for 3 yards or something. Everything else was a positive, successful run or a successful screen pass gain. And Alexander Mattison, his running style, we know what it is. He runs angry, he runs tough. He also always seems to be in a hurry to get somewhere. Like, he's not a guy that seems to set up his blocks very much. Right. He's just like, I got the ball, I see a hole, boom, I got to hit into it. And that's why some people get frustrated with him, because they think he misses some holes too, because he's in a hurry to get to where he wants to go. Cam Akers, this was the first time I really watched him closely. When he was with the Rams, I didn't really pay too much attention, but he has a little bit different running style than Alexander Mattison. A little bit, much more patient. He's seems to be setting up his blocks. He's getting the run. He's going forward, but he's not with as much urgency as Mattison. And he waits for those blocks to settle, and waits for the hole to emerge. But when he sees it, he is decisive and he hits it. But he's a much more like a patient type of runner. Again, not as much a hurry to get somewhere, but when he decides where the hole is and he thinks that's the way to go, he gets there quickly. And so I think he's, again, like Steven said, he is a nice different running style, a nice change of pace from Alexander Mattison. And I think that as long as the offensive line can give him a little bit of breathing room, he's going to be a nice addition and a nice complement to the Vikings offense and our running attack. And I'm happy that we traded for him, especially because we gave up nothing to get him. I think the one thing that we have to like temper our enthusiasm a bit with the past two games is how good of a defenses did we face? The Chargers don't seem to be a bad defense, but they're not a great defense. And I think Carolina's looks like they have a pretty poor defense overall and not a very good run defense. So
Right.
Did the Vikings just pull up a couple of good games? Was it a lot of it due to the competition we faced, or is it because our offensive line has gotten much better in the run blocking and the changes that you mentioned that the coaching staff has made with the run blocking schemes that we're running, is that suited more to their talents than what we were doing before? Will that carry over in the future? Because tomorrow we got the Chiefs.
And they're good against the run.
They're good against the run. They've got a good defense overall. Then we play in 2 weeks' time, we play the 49ers. We know what their defense is all about. And then we play that team from Wisconsin in Lambeau the following week. And I think that their defense overall is strong, although their run defense tends to be weaker than the pass defense. But if the Vikings can sustain this kind of running attack in the 4 games and particularly against those 3 defenses, then I think we can say, the Vikings running game, it wasn't really bad to begin with. There was, Alexander Mattison was not some scrub that we needed to replace. We just needed the offensive line to block better, and we needed more opportunity and to get into, the scheme of things. And we've got a good running game. But I think I'm encouraged by what I've seen the past 2 games, but it's still, let's see them do it against a little bit better defenses. And if they have success, then I think we can say we've got a good running attack, and Kevin O'Connell and Chris Cooper and Wes Phillips have addressed the problem, and they've looked like they've fixed it. And if they do fix it, it's a big help for this offense, because we don't want Kirk Cousins dropping back to pass 50 times a game. That's not good for his health. That's not good for versatility. That's not good for keeping the team, keeping opposing defenses guessing, and for us to be like a multi-dimensional offense that can do it through the air or on the ground. That's what we want to see from the Vikings offense, not to be just all passing. And if you shut that down, you shut down the Vikings.
Correct. I agree wholeheartedly. So it's going to be interesting. I'm hoping Cam Akers, Mattison combo sticks, and it's a, thunder and lightning, to steal a phrase, style of committee, and that we are quite pleased going here on out.
And what I'd like to see Kevin O'Connell do with the offense, like with Mattison or Akers, is right now you got 2 guys who are very capable, I think, but go with the hot hand. If Mattison is rolling and he's just lights out, just keep on feeding the ball. Give him a rest the odd time. But like you said, Madison, this guy is, once he gets lathered up, he needs 15, 17, 18, 20 carries to really get into the flow of things. On the other hand, if he just isn't having his day, he's got the dropsies, he's getting stuffed, then try Akers. And if Akers is more effective, keep rolling with him. Again, you got 2 different style of running styles, and depending on the game and the defense we play, that running style might be more effective. Cam Akers might be more effective than Alexander Mattison, and vice versa. But I don't like the whole thing about how, you can't find out if a guy who's effective more if you don't play both of them. But if one guy's rolling, like, don't put another guy in just because it's his turn. Like, it's his drive, right? Let's go with the guy and that's what one thing last week. It ended up working out fine, but Akers had that second drive where he had 8-9 yard carries, and then the Vikings they got off the field, and then the next drive they went with Mattison. I'm like, no, stick with Akers because he's rolling. Like he's just getting going. And now you're taking him out. And when he gets back in, it could be 2 or 3 drives later. And, he's kind of coming in cold. And like, is he going to be effective? Just let's keep rolling with the guy who is like churning out those 8 or 9 yard gains every time he gets the ball. But they didn't do that. It didn't end up hurting us. But, that's something I would like to see. Go with the hot hand if there is a hot hand.
Mm-hmm. I want to acknowledge Aaron. His Longhorns tapped his energy in the battle of undefeated teams between
tough loss.
Texas and Oklahoma. Battle of the Red River. Oklahoma came out victorious.
In a very, if you're a Longhorns fan and also a Vikings fan, you've seen that type of lots of times before on the Vikings side of things.
Yep. All right, that brings us to theme 2. The Davenport effect.
Marcus Davenport. So last Sunday, Vikings fans we waited 3 games, but the Vikings fans against Carolina, the Vikings fans, the Carolina Panthers, and future Vikings opponents got to see Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's one of his main free agent acquisitions in the offseason play against the Carolina Panthers, Marcus Davenport. And, of course, Davenport, he got that ankle injury just before the season started. And then he only played 4 snaps in the first 3 games, which led to a lot of questions about Davenport, his toughness, his willingness to play through pain, and also questions about Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's wisdom in signing a guy who everybody knows has always had a hard time staying healthy and answering the bell on game day when he played with the Saints. It also led to questions about, with the Vikings defense really struggling to stop anybody to generate any kind of pass rush outside of Danielle Hunter or when they're blitzing, and that wasn't working too well either, was like, what if Davenport was in there, what kind of impact is he going to have on the defense and on the pass rush? Well, last Sunday, we got to see it, and in my opinion anyway, Davenport made a big, big difference to the Vikings defense, particularly in the second half. And he played despite being questionable before the game and being limited all week, and he's limited again. Anthony, he played 63% of the defensive snaps last week. I think 42 of 75 defensive snaps. We were on the field a lot as usual. 4 tackles in total, not all of them unassisted, but 4 tackles, 2 quarterback hurries. He had 1 sack, and he really almost had 2. Though he had 1 sack where he created pressure on Bryce Young, didn't quite get him down, but DJ Wonnum came in to clean up, something that DJ Wonnum often does.
The cleanup man. Yes, DJ Wonnum.
And so there was that, and Pro Football Focus had him a 73.4 grade on the defense, which was 4th best on the team. And it wasn't just the pass rush, Dave. In what I saw with, I guess the one thing that I saw from Davenport in the game was that the Vikings lined him up against the left tackle. They lined him up on the edge there. They lined him up on the edge against the right tackle. They also had him inside quite a bit over the guard or the center. So he added in that game, you kind of saw he's got a versatile guy. He can play multiple roles, even though he's an edge outside linebacker. He can go inside. He wasn't just good on the pass rush, Dave. I saw on the run, what I was paying attention to, you could see one of his strengths is that he held up well against the run. He didn't get pushed back on run plays by the offensive lineman. He held his ground for the most case. He created some penetration on some plays, and that led to stops by him and other teammates. And that's one of the things that we heard about him that was a real plus with Marcus Davenport, is that he's a big, powerful dude. He can win with speed. He's got that ability, but he can also win with power, which is a rare combination. And I thought we saw that a lot in that game. One of them, and again, can have a real versatile role for the Vikings when he played. We saw that against Carolina. One formation that I noticed and that I liked with Brian Flores, I saw it a couple of times, was that he had Danielle Hunter on a few plays lined up on the left tackle, and then he had Marcus Davenport right next to the right of Danielle Hunter over a guard. I like that alignment because if you're the offensive line, who are you doubling? Are you doubling Davenport or are you doubling Danielle Hunter in that case? And if you got to double one of them, probably whoever you do, then you're leaving either Davenport or Hunter one-on-one. And I like those odds for Davenport and Hunter if they're getting one-on-one with an opposing offensive lineman. That's the kind of dilemma that Marcus Davenport can, when you got him on the field and he's healthy and he's going good. That's the kind of dilemma he can give to opposing defenses, and that's the kind of dilemma Brian Flores can put opposing offenses in when he's got both Hunter and Davenport there. Because before, without Davenport on the field, of course, Flores only had, like, who else did opposing offenses have to account for on the on the pass rush other than Danielle Hunter? Really nobody. Patrick Jones and DJ Wonnum and Andre Carter, who's been getting some more snaps the past couple of weeks. Those have been the main edge rushers that we've been using in the previous 3 games, and they just haven't been able to create any kind of a pass rush at all. That really changed with Marcus Davenport against Carolina in that game. Now, again, you got to consider the competition. You got an inexperienced rookie quarterback that we were facing in Bryce Young, who holds onto the ball a long time. And the Carolina offense is not very good. So you have to take that into consideration. But still, the Vikings defense played pretty well in that game. I think Marcus Davenport was a big reason why. And, he's just an extra piece that opposing offenses have to account for. And maybe having him in there and Danielle Hunter in there, maybe Davenport can also elevate the other guys like DJ Wonnum and Patrick Jones II, or even Andre Carter, and elevate their play a little bit by being on the field and the attention that other opposing offensive lines have to pay him. Because DJ Wonnum in the Carolina game, you saw he almost had a pick 6 very early in the game. Made a nice play. He got the fumble recovery, kind of lucky there, but hey, he did well taking it to the house. He got the sack, and Pro Football Focus, again, they had him as the top graded Vikings defender in that game, an 81.5 overall game grade, which is the best they've ever given DJ Wonnum in his 4 years with the Vikings. Usually he's in like the high 50s, kind of low 60s area. 81.5 is excellent for him. So if maybe it was just a fart in the wind, kind of one rare great game by DJ Wonnum, but that happened to happen when Marcus Davenport was playing in this game. So Davenport himself can be a problem for opposing offenses. And also him being out there potentially, that helps some of the other lesser guys on our defense be more effective too, which is all good stuff for the Vikings. And I think that was the Davenport effect against the Carolina Panthers. Now his next assignment, if he chooses to accept it, is play 2 games in a row.
That's right. Because we're going to need him tomorrow.
Yes, we are going to need him. And again, he's been limited all week in practice, questionable for the game, but it was the same thing last week. Like you said, maybe it's a paperwork thing. It could be that that's just Davenport's going to be on the injury report almost every week this year just because he's Marcus Davenport. But we do really need him, especially when he plays like he did against Carolina, regardless of what the level of competition was. That was a guy who made a big difference to our defense on an individual and team level. And yeah, against the Kansas City Swifts, you've got to have guys that make a difference and make life miserable for Patrick Mahomes and Jason Kelce and all those, Travis Kelce and all those people. So very, very happy with how Marcus Davenport played last week, and looking for more of that. And we just need him to stay healthy and see if this can be a consistent everyday game kind of thing for him.
Because combination of him and Hunter is going to open up so much more. We're going to get more hitman, busting in. It's please stay healthy and be out there.
Yes.
All right, that brings us to theme 3. Where we're talking Vikings versus the Chiefs.
We are. Roll those slides, baby.
Here we go. Starting off with the injury report. For your Minnesota Vikings, we have Brian Asamoah, Lewis Seen, Marcus Davenport, and Nick Mullins, all questionable. The one that's missing off this list is Garrett Bradbury, who is a full participant. For the Chiefs, we have Matt Dickerson, Nick Bolton, and Wanya Morris, all questionable. Neither of those fine gentlemen are considered regular starters. So, it's we'll see.
Both teams are pretty healthy, all things considered.
Yep. When we go battle of the quarterbacks, who's the better quarterback? This is simple. Everybody knows this. Patrick Mahomes comes in with a power rank of 7.5 over Kirk Cousins 3.5. And in this metric, the higher the number, the better. Now, here we go with the offense versus defense. The Vikings offense, per PFF, overall, their power ranking dropped a little bit from 5th to 6th. But when we get to DVOA, they went up to 12th overall, 14 against the pass, and 20 with, not against the pass, 14th with the pass, and 20th with the run. They moved up in the run. That was the big movement there. When it comes to totals, they dropped just a little bit in yards, down to 6th. For Elias Sports Bureau passing, they're still 3rd. Rushing, they moved up to 28th. They were at the bottom before, if you remember. Points were 17th total. We've taken 10 sacks. We've given away the ball. We're 32nd in the league with that, giving it away 11 freaking times. Hopefully that stops. I want regression back to 0. And we have a -8 differential. The Vikings are underdogs by 3.5 points, and the over-under is 52.5. Now, versus the Chiefs' defense. We said the Chiefs have a pretty good defense. They are the 6th power-ranked defense per PFF. Overall, on DVOA, they are 14th, 10th against the pass, 20th against the run. And we just talked about the running game and that first theme. The running game may have some success because of that. When it comes to Elias, total yards, they're 8th. Passing, they're 8th against the pass. They're 13th against the rush. Points, they're 6th. They do not allow a lot of scoring on them. Sacks, they're ranked 19th. They have 10, which is a decent number. Takeaways, they're ranked 13th, and they have 5 takeaways. Now flipping over to the other side of the ball, the Vikings defense fell just a little bit in the power rankings to 21st. However, DVOA had them going up to 20th overall, 20th against pass, and 17th against the run. What a difference Marcus Davenport made. Elias Sports Bureau had us moving up to 20th in yards, 20th against passing, 16th in rushing, 19th in points. The Vikings rank 17th with 11 sacks of their own. They rank 28th in takeaways with only 3. We'd like to see that number go up tomorrow. The Chiefs offense, power ranking per PFF is 4th. And that's pretty damn good considering all the talent that left in the offseason. But that's the Mahomes effect. Will come to DVOA, they are 8th overall, 7th in passing, and 11th in rushing. So they've got, even with the loss of the talent, they are still very, very good. Elias has them 3rd in total yards, 6th in total passing, 9th in rushing, 9th in points. They've taken only 2 sacks, which is surprising because they have some weak areas on their offensive line.
Do they ever?
They're 27th in giveaways with 8, and they have a -3 differential on takeaway giveaways, just like the Vikings have a minus differential. that is one spot we might get lucky at tomorrow. We'll have to find out. But they are prone to giving the ball up. So let's take advantage of that. And then once we get to the kickers, the punters, and the special teams guys, DVOA overall has the Vikings dropping to 21st. I don't know if that's because of lack of volume or what, but they have the Chiefs at fourth best, and we shall see how that goes tomorrow. So far, Greg Joseph hasn't missed a kick. Gotta love that. Normally, we're doing great all the way around and then bitching about the kicker, but not so far this season. But that is what it is. Next, you wanted to talk about Patrick Mahomes.
But not much, Dave, because
not much.
Well, Patrick Mahomes, right? Like anybody who follows football knows what this guy does. So don't want to spend a whole lot of time on him. You know that he's great at doing off script plays. There's going to be plays where it looks like the Vikings have him dead to rights, and he's going to turn it, and Mahomes himself is going to turn the play into Kansas City gold. And there'll be plays where, like, Mahomes is going to do some sort of shovel pass, underhand pass, behind the back, no look pass. That'll lead to some big Kansas City play. And we'll all be screaming and hollering and cursing and swearing because we thought we had him for a negative gain, and they ended up making a big play out of it. And we just have to live with that because Mahomes does that against everybody. And I'm pretty sure he's going to do it against us tomorrow. Just hopefully not a whole bunch of times. Same thing with Travis Kelce. He's going to catch probably quite a few passes, might catch a touchdown or two. And he does that against everybody. We just got to deal with that if it happens. So those guys are known things. Despite that, and despite the rankings you've seen, like the Kansas City Swifts have they put up a 40 burger on the Bears a couple of weeks ago, but other than that, they had 20 points against the Lions, 17 points in another game, and then 23 against the Jets last week. So to me, and you get to see Kansas City a lot because they're on national TV prime time all the time, right? Whether you're a fan or not. So I've watched.
Usually are, yes.
Yeah, I watched just about all their games other than the Bears game. And I think that their offense it's not the juggernaut that we've come used to seeing, at least so far. They look a little off. Mahomes looks a little off. He threw 2 bad interceptions, like really poor, careless interceptions against the Jets on Monday night. That got the Jets back into the game, really. And overall, he's 11th overall in passing yards right now in the NFL, 21st in completion percentage, which is really surprising. And then he's tied for second most, along with our buddy Kirk Cousins, for most interceptions with 4. So he has not had a great start to the season. Nonetheless, he's Patrick Mahomes. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champ, 2-time NFL MVP. And this week, that kind of guy, and this week, that kind of guy is a dangerous guy to face, especially if he thinks that he has not had the type of start that he normally has. And what is the difference with this Kansas City Swifts offense compared to previous years? I think a lot of it has to do, they got Kelce, sure, they got Mahomes, but I think a lot of it has to do is that he doesn't have Tyreek Hill anymore. He doesn't have Juju Schuster-Smith. He doesn't even have McCole Hardman. What he has are guys like, he's got the rookie Rashee Rice, he's got Sky Moore, he's got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and he's got Kadarius Toney. And those are the top 4 guys on the Swifts wide receiver depth chart. And combined, they have, after 4 games, 35 catches, 413 yards, and 2 touchdown catches. Combined. Justin Jefferson himself has 33 catches, 543 yards, and 3 touchdown catches, just him alone. So that I think is a big problem for Mahomes. He just doesn't quite have that extra weapon or two that he's used to have, like the dependable weapon that he's used to have to throw to. And I think that it's impacting the Kansas City's offense and even him. And
we know in week 1 when they didn't have Kelce, the Lions beat them.
That's right. So that is a plus. I think the issue with it is, does this Vikings offense, can they take advantage of that? Because even last week when they played really well, Bryce Young, the rookie, who'd been struggling, completed 27 of 32 passes. The week before, Justin Herbert, 40 of 47 passes he completed. And then Jalen Hurts the week previous to that, although the Eagles didn't light it up in the air, he completed, I think, 18 of 23 passes. So long story short, quarterbacks against the Vikings defense are completing a high percentage of passes so far. And that's a concern, even with not the strongest wide receiving core that we're used to seeing with Kansas City at this point. But I think that, so we'll have to see how that goes. And I think a lot of it it's going to be up to Brian Flores to come up with the game plan to have the Vikings defense be effective against Mahomes and Kelsey and Andy Reid, because they're going to have to deal with Mahomes, Kelsey, and Andy Reid's going to do all this misdirection stuff and try to confuse you like he always does, and it works a lot of time. But I'm going to be interested to see how Flores plays this, because the Vikings have blitzed a lot. 55% of opposing dropbacks they've blitzed this year, well above anybody else in the league. I don't think that, but what opposing defenses the past couple of years have done for the most part is they don't blitz Mahomes. They keep the two safeties high, try to prevent the big play, the big splash explosive play, keep everything in front of you, force the Kansas City offense to like churn out these long, slow drives, make them execute for 10, 15 plays and earn their points that way, as opposed to 2 plays, 80-yard touchdown. Okay, rinse and repeat.
Do you know why they don't blitz a lot?
Because Mahomes torches you when you blitz.
Because
his
Mahomes, his passing grades and rating when blitzed is astronomical compared to every other quarterback in the league. He finds a way to make that work and to make you pay. And defenses across the league have said, no, we'll just try to contain him. And that'll be a key to tomorrow with the edge guys, Hunter and Davenport, even though they're going to be anxious to get some Mahomes meat in their teeth, they're going to have to contain on the way to the quarterback, because he can so easily slip out, slip under, step forward, do whatever, and then kill you. So they're going to play disciplined tomorrow when they play against him, especially.
Yeah, and that really goes against what Flores likes to do, even what he's done the first 4 games. But I think Flores, I didn't get any stats on this day, but I do believe that the blitzing, it wouldn't be hard, but he really toned down the blitzing against Carolina compared to against Los Angeles the week before. And I think they played a lot more, they blitzed less and blitzed less guys than they did against the Chargers the week before. And we're content to play a bit more coverage and have more guys in coverage. Don't know why I know why you do that against a rookie, but I don't know why you would keep on doing that against Herbert when he's torching you when you're doing the blitz. Anyway, that's past. What's done is done. But I really think that if I'm Flores, I'm going to try the conservative, keep things in front of me approach and see how well that works. And then if I have to blitz as a last resort, I'll go and do that. Or be very choosy about when I blitz and that sort of thing. But I don't think we're going to see nearly the amount of blitzing that we've seen the previous 4 games. And I think that's the right strategy to use in this case. Force Kansas City to execute and be efficient on a 13, 14 play drive. And chances are on a long drive like that, the offense is going to have a holding penalty that's going to set them back, or a blocking assignment's going to be screwed up. That's going to lead to a negative play, and your defense is going to get off the field. Maybe not so much because they did a great thing on their end, but because the Kansas City offense didn't execute the way they had to, because you're going to screw up eventually after you're running the 12th play of your drive, or at least that's the theory anyway. That's what I want to see. I think for the Vikings for defense, like one thing that they need to capitalize on is the Kansas City offensive line, which gets a lot of plaudits about how good it is. And that's true for Creed Humphrey and Joe Thuney and those guys, but they have two of the worst starting tackles in the NFL right now in Donovan Smith at left tackle and Jawan Taylor at right tackle. And Taylor in particular at right tackle is horrible. He's got a PFF grade of around 40, which is you don't see. He's ranked 67th out of 68.
There's guys that sit on benches in places that have higher PFF grades.
And you can say, and that's ranked 67 out of 68 tackles that the PFF is grading right now. So if you're doing the math, that means he's the second worst tackle in the NFL. I don't know who the worst is.
And
it might be
the ones with snaps, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it might be a guy who's only had 2 snaps that he's ahead of, like, who knows? But you can say, oh, it's PFF, their grades suck, they don't know what they're doing. But again, I've watched 3 of the Kansas City games, and I can tell you that grade matches what I'm seeing with Jawan Taylor. Like, he's on run plays, on pass plays, he's getting beat by the guy that he's having to block a lot of times. And when he isn't beat, he's either holding or he's false starting as well. So he's prone to penalties and he's prone to getting beat. And if I'm Brian Flores, I'm lining Davenport or Hunter up against him over his helmet, like mucho amount of times, and see what kind of havoc that can wreak to the Vikings. Now, on the other side of things, we talked about Mahomes, Kelsey. We know they're going to do what they're going to do. One thing that the Vikings have to do in this game, I think, is they've got to make sure that they really prepare and tackle well against running back Isaiah Pacheco. Now, he's not a guy he's become the getting the lion's share of the running of the rushes for the Kansas City. Clyde Hilaire is not getting a whole lot. Jerick McKinnon is not getting a whole lot. They've gone to Pacheco. And while Pacheco isn't a flashy guy, he runs angry, he runs tough, and he's faster than you think, as the Jets found out last week, Monday night. He is a guy that weak arm tackles and little bumps are not going to take him down. He's not a guy who goes down at first contact or even second contact. So the Vikings have to tackle well against when Isaiah Pacheco gets the ball, because they cannot have him with all they got to deal with Mahomes and Kelsey. They can't have Pacheco churning off consistently 5-yard runs or more time after time after time, because they aren't going to be very successful if Mahomes is sitting in 2nd and 3, 2nd and 2 the vast majority of the time. So I hope Brian Flores has made tackling a real focus in this game, and getting players to rally to the ball when Pacheco gets the ball, because we're going to need 2 or 3 guys to take him down. He's that tough of a runner, and he's been that effective of a runner this game. And he's a guy that not many people talk about for Kansas City, but they should, because he's an important part of their offense right now.
Mm-hmm. And they got to stop him.
Yeah.
So, and that'll be key. That'll be one of the things to slow this Chiefs team down. The stadium being loud should it won't mess with Mahomes, but it could mess with the rest of that young, inefficient squad on the offense. And we'll see how it goes.
Offensively and defensively, you showed with the slides, the Chiefs, the Swifts, the Chiefs defense is ranked pretty good. Like they have been performing as well, if not better, than the Kansas City offense through the first 4 games. I think they haven't given up any more than 23 points in a game this season, I believe. So they can be a problem. I think in this game, we're going to really need Kirk Cousins to be like the self-assured, calm Kirk Cousins that we in this game at his best, because earlier this week on the show, Tyler Forness has gone on a few times. Tyler Forness has gone on a few times about his concerns, his criticisms with the way Kirk has played, particularly in this season. He's seeing a lot of indecisiveness in the pocket from Kirk, double clutching on throws, being late with his reads, and poor pocket movement, not moving in the pocket, moving up in the pocket when he needs to, and not being decisive and being a little bit indecisive on his throws. And what I've seen is that I agree with it, and with a lot of that, Kirk's holding on to the ball a long time on a lot of passes. Now the pass plays maybe are longer, and so they take a long time to develop too. Sure enough, but those are some of my concerns. If you are indecisive and holding on to the ball a long time on obvious passing downs against Kansas City, I don't think that's a very good recipe for success for the Vikings. Steve Spagnuolo, who's a very experienced, long-time defensive coordinator in the NFL. He's a very good one, I think. He's had a lot of success with Kansas City, and he's a guy who likes to bring pressure on, particularly on obvious passing downs. One of his favorite things is that overload pressure, where he'll send one or two more guys and you can block on one particular side of the line. And that usually often leads to one, maybe even two rushers getting a free shot at your quarterback and forcing him to get rid of the ball much earlier than he has to. We know that Kirk cannot escape that sort of thing with his legs. So he's either going to get sacked or get rid of the ball very quickly and take a hit. And so the Vikings really have to be efficient. I think they have to have, in this game, they're going to need Cousins to be decisive and also they're going to need an offense that gets consistent, strong, positive gains the vast majority of the time on their snaps. Now, that's very obvious, but if against some teams, if you get into 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 a lot, you can execute and you can overcome that. But I don't think that's a very good, recipe for success against Steve Spagnuolo defense. I think he's going to force you with his pressure to get rid of the ball earlier. So if you need a pass pattern that's 7 or 8 yards, he's going to make you get rid of it to a guy who's open 3 yards past the line of scrimmage, and then you get tackled before you get to the first down, right? Or get sacked.
Or if you're waiting on a long developing pass, that's when it's gonna affect. I'm not so much worried about 7-yarder or 8-yarder or anything under 10. But if you're going over 10 and you're waiting for JJ or Addison to come open deep, that's when we get in trouble. And a lot of people look at the stats, how many times Kirk's been hit, how many times Kirk's been pressured, and the different stat people look at it differently. They give the quarterback 2.5 seconds, generally one of the main ones, and anything after 2.5 seconds, that's on the quarterback in the fact that they should have gotten the ball away.
Yeah.
If a defense can get to your quarterback in under 2.5 seconds, that's a good defense, right? Well, it may take a few seconds for those long balls that KOC likes to do because they are very explosive.
Yeah.
They're plays when they're completed, and that changes the game. It can change the game, especially with momentum and everything. He likes to wait on those, and those are what has been getting him in trouble at some times, where he's not moving. He's standing like a statue. He's not feeling the pocket as it's collapsing. He doesn't have the innate radar sort of deal, the built-in sensors like Mahomes has to know exactly what's going around without even having to look. You know, Mahomes has his own built-in LiDAR to know that converts movement and tells him exactly where people are at and where holes are opening up, and he goes for that. Kirk Cousins does not. If you want to compare him to fighters, you know, Mahomes is an F-35. Kirk Cousins, if you're lucky, he's maybe Gen 4, F4 Phantom-ish, somewhere in there. So it's all about that situational awareness in the pocket, which Kirk has always had a hard time with. So if Spagnuolo gets going, Kirk could have a hard time. But that's where we're hoping this improved line that's theoretically so good steps up.
And they're going to have to step up against Chris Jones. He's got a great player. I don't see anybody on the interior of the Vikings, even if Bradbury is back, who can handle him. So it'll be interesting to see blocking-wise how we deal with him. But he isn't always on the inside either. Like the Spagnuolo will take him to the outside on obvious passing downs, and that'll be an interesting matchup because I actually like O'Neal or Darrisaw against even as good as Jones is. I think that we can hold up there. It's on the inside of stuff where I think that Chris Jones is going to wreck a lot of shit for us if we don't do something about that. And that's also very important.
And Jones likes to go against the weakest offensive lineman.
Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it does.
Everybody should be doing that. And so I think it's going to be important, again, like you said, for that improved offensive line. The Swifts' defense isn't as good against the run as it is against the pass. And so really important, I think, again, for Mattison and Akers and the offensive line to have a really good game tomorrow and get the running game going, because not only is that going to allow us to get positive runs or positive gains in the run, and we won't have to drop back and pass 50 times, but that's where you can use the play action even more effectively. And use the play action, get those linebackers, in particular with Kansas City, get them in a bind. Should I come forward? Do I need to drop back into coverage? Oh, they're doing play action here. And then you throw over that with that indecisiveness. Hold up the pass rush on those guys with that indecisiveness and get the offensive rolling that way. I haven't really seen a whole lot of play action, I think, in the first 4 games, at least what I've been watching. And maybe that's partly because we haven't been able to run the ball very much. But I think that's going to be key as well. Running game being effective, not having to be in obvious passing downs and in obvious long yardage down and distance situations too. Again, where Spagnuolo can dial up the pressure, get the ball out of force Kirk to get the ball out of his fans quick, so he's checking down to CJ Ham or TJ Hawkinson or whatever, and then we all get upset because we needed 8 yards and he threw it 3 yards. Right. But he didn't have time to throw it, wait for the 8, the longer ones he had to get rid of.
Yeah, because he didn't move. I want to highlight, Justin posted up shameless plug preview episode that he put out on podcast this morning. You can check the Vikings First and SKOL podcast feed, and you can see it there. It was his Taylor's version of it. It is also on YouTube, or he has a slightly different on YouTube as well. Go check out Justin's work. He is just as infatuated with Taylor Swift as Kelsey is. So good for you there, Justin.
Yeah, I guess beyond the getting the running game going, using the play action to keep the Spagnuolo defense off balance. For the love of Odin, Dave, can we go one game without
turnover?
There's other issues why this team is 1-3, and we've talked about them in previous episodes. But I counted it up, and we have now, of our 11 turnovers, there have been 8 that have been inside the opponent's 35-yard line. So conservatively, we've given up on those 8 drives. The Vikings have pissed away either anywhere from 24 to 56 points in total with those 8 turnovers that have happened inside an opponent's 35-yard line. Dave, think of how much different the Vikings record would be if the Vikings had only had 3 of those turnovers, had 5 less turnovers, and turned some of those, 0 points into points.
And how much better they'd feel about themselves right now than
you'd at least be 2-2, maybe 3-1. And instead of us talking about how the offense really has been okay but not great, we'd probably have scored 27 points or more in 3 of the 4 of our games, and we'd be talking about, this offense is really as explosive as we were hoping it would be. And those things aren't happening a lot of reasons because we're turning the ball over. So play a clean game, guys. Mm-hmm. Don't turn the ball over and do stupid shit.
For the love of Odin, yes, please.
Yeah. And turn some of those turnovers into points for us, and maybe we get a different result than what we're expecting tomorrow. And I just got to mention it, Dave, the Kelsey Taylor Swift thing.
That was the only picture I could find with them together until about an hour before the show. One popped up on Twitter, and I didn't have time to process it. Yeah,
so that whole thing, it's got the NFL all aflutter, and pro athletes, I think, are pretty good about. They've been doing this for years about how they got when it's game time and you got to do your job and practice, you tune out all the outside noise and you focus on that. So I don't know how much of a difference this is, but when Travis Kelce is reportedly dating perhaps the most famous pop star in the world, that's created a lot of attention, and I'm sure a lot of extra stuff for him and a lot of things to think about. If this is even causing him to be 0.1% less focused on his job tomorrow.
That's a great thing.
I am all in favor of that.
Now, it's reported she will not be at the stadium tomorrow. So unless something changes last minute, don't expect to see her. But maybe he's dreaming of her as he's sitting in the huddle.
Still texting him. He's still texting her, "Oh, honey, hey, how's it going? Where are you tonight?" All that sort of stuff. And
that
if it's
new
even
puppy
more
loves the stage.
Yeah. Even if it's more than 0.1%, again, 100% in favor of that. Anything that can take the Kansas City players' focus, especially Kelsey, off of the Vikings and what they got to do tomorrow is a plus for the Vikings. And
Absolutely.
maybe it's a little bit of an advantage. However little, I'll take it. So
Me too.
Those are good
now,
things.
Do you think this game is winnable by the Vikings?
It's winnable. Absolutely. With the way the Chiefs the Chiefs have played, particularly their offense maybe not being as explosive, as much of a juggernaut as we've been used to. But I think, it's one bad thing. We got Nance and Romo calling this game, and we're 0-6 with them calling the game so far the last 6 times. So I don't know. That's one of those weird stats. But
I heard it's like 0-8. But we haven't won anything.
It's not good. Coincidence, I'm sure. But anyway, but I think, Dave, this is the kind of the thing where the Vikings, you look at it, they gotta have this game, because if you go 1-4 and then tomorrow Detroit plays Carolina at home, likely a win for them. They go 4-1. So now if you lose against the Chiefs, you're 1-4. You're 3 games behind the Lions for the divisional title race, and then that team
with the Bears.
Yeah, and that team from Wisconsin is going on the road to play against Las Vegas. Well, Las Vegas looks terrible this year, so that's likely a Green Bay win, and they go 3-2. So you're 2 games behind them in kind of a wild card, and also 2 games behind a bunch of other teams in the NFC in the wild card. It's just not a good place to be at 1-4, obviously.
Right.
So the game is winnable, certainly. And if the Vikings play that clean game, they're going to have to play a very good game. You're playing against a 2-time Super Bowl champion, a team that's quite battle tested. They've been through a lot more wars than we have and won them. So you got to play your best football. The Vikings can do that. They haven't done that. Maybe they're due, but I just feel that this is kind of where the defense really matters. And I think the Swifts defense is better than ours right now, and they're going to have a slightly easier time stopping our offense than our defense is going to have stopping the Mahomes offense. And that's where the difference is going to lie in this game. And that's why I think we're going to lose it, because we just can't get enough stops compared to what Kansas City's defense can get on our offense.
Well, let's hope that's not the case, but Vegas agrees with you. That's why the Chiefs are favored. The line did move down towards the Vikings. The bigger money's coming in on the Vikings, which is interesting. Now, that's to beat the spread, whether it's win or not. People are at least thinking it's going to be close. And let it be close and entertaining. It's the national game. It's 3:25 kickoff Central. It is 80 to 90% of the country gets to watch it live on CBS. It's the local CBS broadcast. So it means no streaming for me this week, which is woohoo.
Yeah.
And so it should be good. But again, we get Nance and his crew calling the game because it is that big. And hopefully the players, either the ones that get pumped up because it's big, get pumped up. And the ones that cower when it's big, forget that it's a big game and go out there and play their best. And we can win it.
Oh, yeah.
No turnovers, play clean, play, mistake-free ball. We can win this football game.
Play solid football in all 3 phases. And you've got more than a good shot at winning this, because Kansas City, outside of Mahomes, and that's a big factor, but Kansas City is not, they don't look like the best team in the AFC or even the NFC to me at this point in time.
So, well, buddy, that's it for today. Any last words?
I had something, but something great thought, David, and and I seem to have lost it. But
that comes with age, buddy. That comes with age.
I guess so. But yeah, no, they're all. It's a big game. They're all big games when you're 1-3. Get to 2-3, and then you get the Bears the following week. The Bears won on Thursday night, so we wouldn't be facing them and at Soldier Field and them 0-5 and them needing a win and all that sort of stuff. So
with a fired head coach, no, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So, and suddenly Justin Fields knows what he's doing. So it's interesting.
Again.
Remember, tomorrow we go live at the 2-minute warning. With live at the 2-minute warning for your post-game reactions. But it's not just post-game. We sit there and we watch together those last 2 minutes. And if this game works out where the Chiefs and the Vikings are so close, those 2 minutes may be the key factor. And we want you there with us to watch the ending. So remember, at the 2-minute warning in tomorrow's game, tune in to Vikings First and SKOL on your computer, on your phone, whatever device you want. Have the game on in the background, and we'll live that final 2 minutes together, and we'll get to react. Either cheer, celebrate, or vent and bitch. Either way, we're going to have it tomorrow, and we look forward to seeing you.
I remember what I was going to say.
What's that?
It was... there was an article this week. Will Ragatz mentioned that the Vikings have not scored a point in the first quarter in their first 4 games. Remember last year how good they were on their first drive? Almost every game they get a touchdown or at least a field goal, and they have not done this year. Partly because of those turnovers that have been happening inside the opponent's red zone, inside the 35-yard line. So it'd be really nice if our first drive tomorrow in the first quarter we get a TD, put up 7 points, and play with a lead for a change.
Yeah, score early, score often. And let's blow out a team for once. We haven't done that in years. With
2019.
What do we say, buddy?
We say SKOL Vikings, and thanks for watching.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcast as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!